Welcome to a special Father's Day episode of Fathers and Galaxy. I'm Keith, and this is my dad, Kerwin.
Thank you for joining us. Today we have guests who are the members of the Dadbatch podcast. They share a deep passion for Star Wars, cosplay, and most importantly, fatherhood, bringing a fresh and relatable angle to their conversations. All right, let's start with Joe Lara, who is AKA Tech, and his son Austin. Then Rami Shanaday, aka Echo, and his son Bray. And we have Stephen Schultz, aka Wrecker, and his son Oliver.
Hey,
Gentlemen, welcome to Father Son Galaxy.
How's it going?
All
what's
right.
up, guys? What's up, everybody? Thanks for having
How
us.
are you? We're just so excited to meet you, and we can't wait to just talk about Star Wars and talk about your family. So, happy Father's Day, first off.
Happy Father's Day.
Thank you.
All
You
right.
as well.
Happy
Thank
Father's
you.
Day.
Now, we know that there are 5 members of the batch, right? So there are 2 that are not here with us. They weren't able to make it. So that would be John, who is Hunter, and Brian, who is Crosshair. So we just wanted to just give them our regards. We're sorry that they couldn't make it, but we just wanted to shout them out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's we're definitely a squad. That's kind of how we see ourselves, our own little family. But obviously, this is really the first of all that you're inviting us, but to focus on this side of actual family blood, our children and being fathers. So that's awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Could you share the story behind the creation of the Dadbatch and your podcast?
Ooh, we get that question a lot, so we've actually got the story kind of down pat. So we've all known each other for a long time. So Brian, John, Stephen, and I are up in kind of the greater Los Angeles area. Joe's a little farther south, down by San Diego. So we actually, as part of this Bad Batch costuming that we've been doing, we encountered Joe and realized that how much we had in common and everything. So over the course of a few months, we started coming together around these characters and these costumes. And John and I were at an event. Picking up some armor parts, at a sale, and we met Joe and got to talking to him. And then in the meantime, Stephen and Brian, we're all friends, and so we came together around these characters. And it's funny because each one of us has a character that, or gravitated towards the character that actually sort of is most like us. And we laugh because it's almost like we kind of look like our characters a little bit too, sort of like people and their pets, but. We started, when you're working on a project like this, especially a group build, you're communicating with each other and sharing tips on painting and things like that. And so we had a group chat that was going, and somewhere along the way, that group chat got renamed to the Dad Batch, just because we're all fathers, and we thought it was funny. And then in the meantime, Brian moved from Southern California back to North Carolina, and that chat group became our lifeline to him. And every once in a while we'd be talking and somebody would hit the little video call button, and all of a sudden it rings on everybody else's phone. And then we all start talking to each other, and we would be doing this little video chat, just laughing at our own jokes and craziness. And it was at somewhere somebody's like, "Oh God, this is so funny. We should record this." And that moment was sort of the birth of the Dad Batch podcast. We had the name thanks to the chat group, and the idea of recording it became the podcast. And so we, put some ideas together around that and started doing it. And lo and behold, here we are. So.
Now, when you decided who was going to portray what character, you said it was based on your looks, but did you come across any of the members who wanted to play, more than one member wanted to play Tech or Wrecker or Hunter? And how did you resolve that?
We never had that moment. We all sort of picked. So I joke, I've got the hairline. I was blessed with the hairline to do all the bald characters. So I've got a Lobot costume, Lobot from Empire Strikes Back, and he has that cybernetic headset around his head, very much like Echo. And so I was instantly drawn to Echo. In the meantime, Joe was already gravitating towards Tech. Stephen is Wrecker. So John, between kind of the the 5 o'clock shadow and the longer hair. He was Hunter. It all just sort of made sense. We never for a moment ever collided on what characters we want to do. There was never a question.
I see. Okay. And I'm curious to know then, so if you can just go through, and we can start with you, Raimi. Why did you decide that you wanted to be Echo?
So there is something extra fun about doing a group costume, right? It's one thing when you've got a Boba Fett or a Stormtrooper or any like we're all members of the 501st Legion. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that group, but we're all members of that, and we do events in our costumes for that all the time. And there's plenty of opportunities to do, kind of those onesie twosie characters. And Din Djarin, the Mandalorian, can walk around at an event by himself and not be out of place. But when you've got a squad of characters like the Bad Batch, where they are always together, it makes sense for them to be together. Those kind of costume builds are extra fun, because it's one thing to have one character walk in, but when you've got 5 or 6 that are all from the same media and they all look the part and the costumes are, to the level of detail that we put into the work, there's just something extra special about that. So any chance that you can get to do a group build is always fun.
And Joe, why did you want to be Tech?
So yeah, I was in the military for quite a while. I served for 24 years total, and for a large part of that time, I was actually embedded into a special operations team, and my role was very technical, and no pun intended. It was very technical. And the fun is, my son Austin and my other son Brandon were heavy into Clone Wars, and helped pull me in as well. And they had actually watched the first episode of season 7, The Bad Batch, before I did. And as soon as I walked in the door, they all stopped and looked at me and said, "Dad, you need to watch this episode. There's a character that you need to see." And as soon as I saw Tech, that was actually the catalyst for me to get into the idea of building the costume, of becoming this character, and getting the 501st. So I was the one on the outside of this group. In LA, I was down in San Diego during COVID of all times, and figuring it out. And then, like Raimi said, then I met him and John, and it just kind of all came together. The force was definitely at work when we all met. But that's a little bit about how I came to Tech.
Yeah. Well, first off, I just want to say thank you for your service. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Steven, why did you want to be Wrecker?
Well, it's funny because when John and I first saw the Bad Batch premiere a few months before anybody had seen it, he and I both had gravitated to those characters just based on their storyline. I think John was more so gravitating towards it being a clone that didn't look like any other clones, which fascinated him. But for me, Wrecker it was like looking in emotionally, the character, it was like looking into a mirror. We're both scared of heights. We're both boisterous and loud. We love having fun. We're like the big kid of the group, biggest heart, and we like to blow stuff up. But I think what really cemented it for me was during lockdown, my wife would give me haircuts because we couldn't go out to get a haircut. And I used to have a traditional, like very traditional, like side part with, the hard part and all that stuff. And one day my wife just kind of went up on the fade a little too high. and I was like, no, okay, just keep going around until you can fix it. By the time I knew it, my whole head was shaved. And at that point I was just like, well, I guess I got to keep it now. And this was during the Wrecker build, so it just kind of fit.
Wow.
Yeah. We know about the lockdown, and
the haircut story is especially close to us. My dad did that to my brother, just kind of like, trimming the edges, and then a bit too much hair came off, and then he's like, "Oh, now I gotta take it all off."
There's no going back.
You got to preface that I have never cut hair before.
It's okay.
Not like he had a license.
Right.
I wish you had a license.
This is the first time I bought a barber set, clippers, and a trimmer. I had no idea what I was doing. I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and it still didn't come out what I expected.
YouTube, the greatest source of information on the planet.
Okay,
That's right. Yeah.
After Wikipedia, because you always believe what you see on the internet.
Well, I tried, and look, 2 years later, I'm still cutting their hair. So we have not gone back to the barber.
2 years later, I'm still bicking it, so
Yeah.
it's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we have the second generation here, so I actually want to hear from them. So Keith has some questions that you can, after he takes a sip. You got it. Yes.
Yeah. So, could you guys describe a specific moment when Star Wars brought you closer to your kids? Like to your fathers, I mean. Not to your kids. You don't have kids.
Well, so Bray, let's start with you.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite character or a favorite moment in Star Wars?
Well, my dad's office was always very Star Wars'd out. And even when he was in meetings, I would always just be in there playing with his stuff. So.
Yeah. So you're 6 years old, is that right?
13.
Oh, you're right, 13. I
Dad!
apologize. Yes. You're right. 13. All right. So
He's 13.
You're almost halfway there. It's okay.
You look 9.
So yeah, you do look very young. Yeah. So what is your earliest memory of Star Wars? How do you think you were introduced to Star Wars?
I remember I was in my dad's office and I was looking for a character that I couldn't find anywhere. And eventually, after an hour of looking, I noticed it was in my hand.
That's funny. Are you a Stranger Things fan by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Favorite season?
What? Well, why do you? Okay, go ahead. Favorite season of Stranger Things?
Yeah, what's your favorite season?
Okay.
1.
Season 1.
Yes.
Season 1. Okay.
Season 1.
Well, that's good to know because I've only seen one season, the first season. So, but you've seen all 4.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm invested.
And why did you think Bray would have been interested in Stranger Things?
Because he has a Stranger Things shirt on.
Ah, look at that. Okay. All right.
I can see the lettering. I know the font from Stranger Things like the back of my hand.
Excellent.
It's an amazing font, actually. I got to figure out how to make that font.
Okay. So, Austin, I understand you're a musician. You like music?
Yeah. So, I'm actually finished my second year at Berklee College of Music. So yeah, I'm in college. But yeah, I'm studying contemporary rock production, essentially, the writing aspect of music, and then also, producing it, making it sound good. Yeah, that's just a little bit about me. But yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. And then what are you looking to do, when you finish college? What are your goals?
Yeah, so I know I have 2 passions, and those 2 passions are, scoring picture, which is essentially, going into the film and television industry, working on the music side, as well as, writing and production in like a studio setting, for more like commercial radio music, that kind of stuff. So I know I have those 2 passions, and with what I'm studying right now, it'll allow me to, hopefully some point in my life, be able to, tackle those 2 aspects. But yeah, right now still trying to navigate a path to get there. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite composer, film composer?
Yeah, film composer. Funny enough, Star Wars, Ludwig Göransson.
Nice.
Yeah. Also, I mean, it sounded like I was gonna say John Williams. Obviously he's amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, no, something that really brought Ludwig to my attention is, one, he scored Mandalorian, Black Panther, Creed, just a lot of great movies. But he's also, Childish Gambino's, producer in the studio. Helps him, write his stuff. And I thought that was just, cool that there's someone who can do multiple things, not just one facet of music. So yeah, that's why he's up there for me. But yeah.
Yeah, that's very good. He's an excellent composer.
Oh yeah.
So Oliver is 6 years old. Is that right? Oliver, do you have a favorite? Do you like? Well, first of all, do you like Star Wars? Let's just start there. What do you like about Star Wars? Favorite character, maybe?
Whoa!
Yeah,
Skywalker.
yeah, that's
Luke Skywalker.
Luke Skywalker.
Oh,
Nice, very
good
nice.
answer. Yeah.
Very good. Luke Skywalker. That's a good one. That's a good one. Wow. All right. Okay. All right. Well, all right. Let's go on. Let's go back to
Hopefully, you can still hear us if your eardrums
Well,
are still alive.
there are firecrackers outside. I don't know if you heard it,
Yeah,
but
funny
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had quite the experience with fireworks. Let's just say we had these neighbors who set off an entire Macy's 4th of July parade in their driveway.
Yeah.
They never came back. A month later, they were gone.
Yeah.
Oh,
The police had to show up to shut that one down.
Yeah.
wow.
Boy.
Entertaining.
I could have sworn I was in New York at a parade. Jeez.
Okay. So let's go to this one here.
So, for all the dads, could you describe a specific moment when Star Wars brought you closer to your children or taught them a life lesson that you thought they needed to know?
So I'm not sure about the life lesson piece of it, but definitely, I mean, so I mentioned earlier that we all have costumes in the 501st, and that we at least Steven's done this. I've done this with all of my children. So our kids all have costumes as well, and there are certain characters like Jawas or even an Ewok or Ezra from Rebels, where a child playing that character actually makes perfect sense. And so all of the kids have costumes. Ray's got several, and it's great when you can go to an event and be your character, but then also have them running around and being a different character, and you can interact with them and kind of almost have that sort of in-universe experience where you're talking to a Jawa and they're just trying to steal your stuff or whatever. So those are some of my favorite moments, especially just within the 501st Legion in general, is being able to have done that with my kids.
Steven, same question for you.
Well, just to piggyback on what Raimi was saying for a little bit, when Oliver was about to be born, I was so extremely nervous to be a new father. And Raimi actually made a little mini Jawa onesie for Oliver. And he for the time, he ended up being the youngest member of the Galactic Academy because 45 minutes out of being born, we threw that on him in the hospital and took a photo, and boom, he had his cadet ID number ready to go. But
Awesome.
I will say, I think it was Halloween 2020. We built. Is that when we built your Mandalorian costume? Yeah, and I mean, we did the full 3D printed kit, custom soft goods. He had the little rifle that attached with the sling going down his back, and his little baby brother was Grogu, right? In the stroller.
Yeah.
And that was fun. You even had the music going when you're walking down the street, right?
Yeah.
So I think building that costume together was pretty fun, huh?
Yeah.
Joe, what about you?
So it's obviously, I've been a huge fan of Star Wars my whole life, and when you have two young children, there's a certain time, and you're not sure when it's appropriate for them to see certain scenes in Star Wars because you don't want to be too graphic or whatnot. But I would say, age of 4 or 5, kind of showing them parts of Star Wars, and then it just became part of something that we could talk about. But I would say it's really Austin and his brother Brandon, their love for the Clone Wars that raised my awareness and attention to another part of the universe that I wasn't really paying attention to. I was really focused on a lot of the movies, and they actually pulled me in. So instead of me influencing them per se, they heavily influenced me, and I think it resonated as well, because there's a lot of military themes with the clones and this war that was going on, and even some of the language. It's some of the things that we talk about on the Dadbatch podcast, when I'm able to share my take on some of the stories that we're able to enjoy, is the writers, and they all pull from real life, and so that connection of Clone Wars and the boys' influence on really got me immersed. So I would say they probably made me a bigger fan, if anything. Yeah.
So can we start with back to the dads? When you fell in love with Star Wars, and when you had children, how important was it for you to pass it down? I mean, if you, for example, if you have parents who are big sports fans, from birth, they have their child wearing their favorite jersey, sports jersey. How serious were you about, after, knowing how much you love Star Wars, how important was it for you to pass that down to your children?
Well, I think in my household, my brother is 11 years older than me, so he was, he got to see Star Wars in the movie theaters when it came out. That was part of his childhood growing up. So in my household, Star Wars was always a known thing, but I didn't really get into it until 1995. Power of the Force 2 Kenner figures started coming out again, and there was a Darth Vader figure that was like one per case, super hard to find, and I was just begging my dad to get me that figure. And my dad was working in a hospital, hospital hours. So I have no idea how he came home with this figure one day, but when he handed me that Darth Vader figure, that I think right there was the catalyst for me. It just sent me on a complete Star Wars trajectory for the rest of my life. And it was something that my dad and I could always share. And I think because of that, I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer for me. I would never imagine forcing Oliver to forcing him to like something that he wouldn't like. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think I forced Star Wars on you, or you just kind of liked it on your own because I liked it? It took a while.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Right. It wasn't something that I had planned, but it just seemed like the great opportunity to talk about Star Wars, because this was around the time when I introduced Keith. It was in 2015 when the sequel trilogy was now coming out, and I introduced him through the little golden books of Star Wars. But yeah, there was not anything that I was, he has to know Star Wars. He's got to know who Darth Vader is. It was nothing like that. It was just, let's see what happens. Given the books, and the rest is history. He loves it. And he knows Star Wars, I would say, a little bit more than I do.
I don't know. What do you think your favorite thing is other than Star Wars? It's probably like Marvel stuff, right? I think Oliver gravitates more towards like the Marvel, like the superhero stuff. Definitely the superhero stuff, but Star Wars for him, it's just like, it's understood. Like it's just in his blood at this point. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, by the way, unironically, I happen to have the Black Series action figures of all of you guys.
Can you see it?
Nice.
Yeah, there you go. Coincidence. Nice. We had these. Yeah, we bought these. We have the same three. Yeah.
This one doesn't have the goggles under it.
Oh, that's an added piece.
Can
I have that?
Awesome.
I could probably hook you up.
Look at that. There's Echo.
That's the same one.
Yeah, the same one we have. Yeah, it's amazing. How about that? All right. So
Echo's helmet's kind of wonky because he's got this thing they have to like take off.
Takes a little, yeah.
Trust me, I know all about how hard it is to put that thing on and off with that on my head.
That's why Echo had to cut a hole in the back of his helmet because he couldn't deal with it either.
So, Joe, tell me how you were introduced to Star Wars.
So yeah, I'm actually the oldest of the dad batch, and sometimes I feel it in my body, at least my bones. But I don't remember seeing A New Hope. It was really Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi is when I really understanding what Star Wars truly was, and I just remember eventually getting a hold of, before the VHS tapes and VCRs were a thing. You had to wait for a showing on CBS or a special night broadcast of
Right.
Star Wars, and I remember being glued to the television set to watch it, and then the very next day trying to reenact and be Han Solo on the playground, or Boba Fett or whatnot. So those are some early memories. And then my neighbors had all the toys. I think I had to sneak away with one and put it in my pocket because to get those action figures was a fun thing. But yeah, those are kind of my early memories. Star Wars was around Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi.
Rami, how were you introduced to Star Wars?
So I'm just a hair younger than Joe. For me, Return of the Jedi was the first one that I saw in the theater, and I think my oldest brother probably was the one who took me at the time. So I didn't see either of the first two, and so again, seeing A New Hope or Empire Strikes Back, like I saw them out of order, which arguably we're all watching them out of order if we saw them when they came out in the theaters. But so having seen Return of the Jedi, I mean, obviously any kid that kind of grew up in any of our age, like we've basically had Star Wars around our whole lives. And so it's just part of pop culture and part of the fabric of being a little kid in reality, just like Marvel and DC and superheroes and all this other stuff. So it's all just part of being a kid. You can't go into the toy aisle of any store without seeing Star Wars toys hanging from the pegs. So, that's something that I think, we were all into when we were kids too. So I remember going to a friend's birthday party when I was somewhere around that age, and they had gotten some Star Wars toys, and I didn't have any yet. And so I was fascinated with the stuff that he had gotten. So I think that was probably one of the early things that kind of pushed me in that direction as well. So.
All right.
Okay. So for the kids, if you had the opportunity to meet a Star Wars character in real life, who would be your top choice and what would you want to ask them?
Austin, how about we start with you?
All right. Yeah. So growing up, my favorite character was Obi-Wan. Yeah, I think I was Obi-Wan for Halloween, like maybe 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
You
was
were always Obi-Wan.
Always. Yeah, I had the little plastic lightsaber,
Had the stance down.
always.
Oh yeah.
But yeah. So I'd probably meet him first if I could. Gotta ask the classic question. Well, it's not really a question, but
This is a greeting.
say,
Oh, yeah.
Hello there.
Go on, can't go wrong.
General Kenobi.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oliver,
Luke.
you said it was Luke Skywalker, correct? So that's your favorite. Okay. All right. And then Bray, if you had the opportunity to meet a real Star Wars character, who would it be? Who would be your top choice, Bray?
BD1.
Oh, nice.
Changed
Nice
it.
choice.
Nice choice. Okay.
You know BD1.
Yes, from Andor, isn't it?
No, from Jedi Fallen Order.
Oh, Jedi Fallen. Right. Oh, but he appeared in The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Right. Didn't that?
There was a BD droid in The Mandalorian. Yep.
Right. Okay. All right. May not have been the same droid. Right.
Yeah.
That's
In
true.
Pelimato's shop. Right.
Yep.
Yes. Okay. All right.
You're kind of channeling your teacher vibes here, just like calling on people.
Okay. All right.
That's
All right. I want to talk about the Bad Batch just for a little bit because, your name is based off of the Bad Batch. So, and there's hundreds of characters in Star Wars, but you chose the name, the Dad Batch, based on the Bad Batch. So I want to know, what does the Bad Batch represent to you? What draws you to these characters? What do you love about this series?
Oh man, I'll go ahead and start with that if that's okay. I think for me, and we kind of we don't really focus in on it in our conversation, but you see it in our banter and our back and forth, the way we communicate as costumes is we're all different, and we actually embrace that. Like you see it in simple things and tangible things like building costumes. There might be one of us that's really good at a certain method, another one is really another method. And when you look at the Bad Batch on screen, they're experts in their own field,
Yeah.
And it's that diversity of thought, the way to tackle a problem. They're not all thinking the same thing, and that's what makes that group stand out, and that's what made them so successful. I mean, they were perfect in their mission success for so long, and I think that's something that we kind of flesh out ourselves naturally. Yeah, that's just what comes to mind.
I think there's a certain level of difficulty for me letting go of friendships, relationships, and so when it came time for Brian, our Crosshair, when he had to do what was best for his family in that moment and move across the country, I'm like, dude, you can't break up the squad. There's got to be a way we can keep in touch. And I think this was a couple years ago, so it's like everybody was video chatting, and I was like, we just can't let this die. I've been part of too many groups in my life that were, it had the family dynamic that we have, but eventually it just kind of fizzled out. I wasn't going to let that happen this time, not with these guys. I think each of us, the five of us, have such unique qualities in our personalities that we really complement each other with. Like if I ever have a question or I'm thinking about, I know when you ask yourself the question and you already know the answer in your head, but you got to get that confirmation from somebody else. So if I'm looking for something, like if I'm looking for the good-hearted answer, I'm going to go to Joe. I'm going to ask him, like, what should I do in this situation, or how should I handle this? And Joe's going to give me the right answer. If I'm looking for the wrong answer, I'll probably go to Brian. And then, if I have any, like, if I'm like having a technical issue or an engineering issue, I'm going to go to my friend, the rocket scientist, literal rocket scientist, Rami. Because I'm like, who do I know who's an engineer that can solve this issue that I have to fix a 2x4 stud in my house? Oh, wait, I do know an engineer. It's this guy. So, we all bounce each other off each other like that. And I don't think I've ever had that kind of group in my life.
You know what's funny? You guys' friend group is really similar to the Bad Batch, because when you think about it, Crosshair kind of left the team, and no one was ready for that, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of parallels there. So,
Great insight. Good insight.
Art imitating life.
Yeah. The Bad Batch to us is very important. We started our podcast in 2021, and the first series that we reviewed was the Bad Batch season 1. And when I first saw them in the Clone Wars episode, right? I remember, how every Clone Wars episode, it starts with a caption right after the Star Wars logo, a quote, right? And then I always remember the quote, I never forget it, is embrace others for their differences, for that is what makes you whole. And then when I saw them, the introduction to Clone Force 99, and they talked about how they had these special abilities and they were not like the other clones, the regs. To me, it represented neurodiversity to me. I have a son, my youngest son is on the autism spectrum. And it just, I just saw this storyline about him where, you have the regs, or you may have the neurotypical people who may look down towards them or think, well, they're not like them. They're defective. That was the word that was used to describe Clone Force 99.
Unfairly so.
Unfairly, right? Yeah, and then Wrecker, will absolutely say we're not defective. We've got special abilities, and that's how I look at kids who are on the spectrum. So
Wow.
that really means a lot to me. This show, and then over the two seasons now that we had the Bad Batch. I mean, these characters have grown, and they're family. I love their camaraderie. They are a brotherhood.
Their character development is great.
Exactly.
It didn't kick the bucket in season 2. It still stayed strong throughout every time we see the Bad Batch.
Yeah.
Unlike some characters when they appeared later on in the series.
So the Bad Batch is very special to us. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So
thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I appreciate that for sure.
No problem. All right. Well, I want to talk about cosplay now. I am not a cosplayer. I've thought about it. Just not quite there. I just need the courage to wear a costume and represent myself in this costume. You guys seem to be the pros at it. All right. So for somebody who's never done cosplay, don't know anything about creating their own costume, this is cosplay 101. Where would we suggest someone like me start if I wanted to get into cosplay?
You got to pick the character. What character would be your ideal costume?
You know what?
Yes.
I'm thinking. I think I'd be Rex.
You would be Rex?
Nice.
Yeah, I like Rex. He's always been my favorite clone trooper because he has morals.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like after the first season, he kind of reached a turning point because he's like, I've seen what happens to my brothers in the war. Like, why am I still doing this? And he learned to question orders, just to follow them, but to follow them in a way that he agrees with. Like, he follows his own ideology while still listening to others.
Wow.
And even when the chip went off at him, he knew who Ahsoka was still. He still knew the Jedi were. He couldn't fire at them. Like, he still had his morals. I think that makes a great clone trooper. That's why Rex is the best.
Right.
That's awesome.
You would create a Rex cosplay. You would go as Rex.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
And I want to get one of you guys' costumes, something like yours with the 3D printing and all that.
Yeah. Right. For example, let's say I wanted to dress up as Moff
Cody.
No. Moff Gideon. I want to wear a cape. I think I look great. But it's one thing to say, okay, well, I want to dress up as this person. There's another thing where it has to look authentic. And you guys are, top of the line authentic.
You're gonna need a wig for that.
Yeah, I'll see. I'm being teased here. So let's say you have a character. I have a character. Where do I get the materials? Like, where do I start?
Where do you get the wig?
Yes. Where do I get all that?
So it depends on what you're going for. There are clubs. There's like the 501st Legion is a costume club. Moff Gideon as a Star Wars character or being a bad guy would be part of the 501st Legion. And so where the 501st Legion comes in is like they tout themselves as being movie or screen accurate. So there are standards that you have to build a costume to. For example, you can't make it out of cardboard and expect it to look. And I mean, that said, I know people that probably could. So it's a balance between the materials you're using and the skills that you've got. But the idea that would be, you need to decide kind of what you're going for. There's nothing wrong with building a Moff Gideon that wouldn't meet the 501st standards, and yet you still take that to a convention and it looks fantastic, and you take pictures with hundreds of people, and you have a great time, and it's still something that you can be very proud of. So it just depends on what you want to do. Even that said, like, you can use the 501st Legion's forums, and there are online websites that you can go to that will give you tips on how to source the fabric and soft good materials that would go into the suit and where to get the armor. And there might be files that you could 3D print, or there might be somebody that makes them out of plastic that you can buy. So there's usually all kinds of different options.
Tell you what, I could 3D print you a dark saber. All we need is like some metal spray paint, some white filament. Like we're also gonna need like translucent 3D printed filament so that when I put the LED strips inside, you can see it through the 3D print stuff, like maybe plastic.
You're
I
thinking
don't know,
you
something-
sound
something
exactly like
simple.
us when we're trying to figure out.
Oh my god!
That looks awesome. Okay.
I'm curious, Keith. What print do you have a printer already?
No, but when I was in the first grade, fun fact, I'm in the gifted and talented program, not to brag, top of my class. 98th percentile.
Okay.
Nice.
Anyway,
Nice.
the first thing I wanted to do was 3D print the Millennium Falcon
Ooh.
Yeah.
at like
Absolutely.
6. I didn't
Absolutely.
really get how 3D printers worked. Like, you couldn't print an entire replica like that all at once because that would take like 2 weeks. But now I get it.
I think because you have the passion already for printing and you don't even have a printer yet, I would recommend that would be a good avenue to go with, because with 3D printing you can create anything from just literally spun plastic. Rami was talking about the different clubs. I just to elaborate on that a little bit more. If you want to dress up as a bad guy, you would go to 501st.com, and they have these discussion forums that you would sign up for. Once you get in those forums, there is sub forums for each of the detachments. Now, a detachment would be like all the stormtroopers, because their costume is built in a certain way. They would go to the stormtrooper detachment, or the Imperial officer detachment, for instance. For someone like Moff Gideon, you'd go into that detachment where people who have been doing this for so long are going to give you all the tips and the tricks of like, oh, this is the fabric you want to buy. This is the link to go get it. Here are the files that you want to print if you have a printer for the armor and this and that. And then you can even post your progress on your build in real time so that other people can give the constructive criticism or the critiques of like, oh, this is backwards, or you got to reprint this, or size this up or size it down. And they have the same thing for the good guys. So if you want to be one of the good guys, or like Luke Skywalker or something, you can go to rebellegion.com, and it's the exact same thing.
I see. Okay.
You know what if I were to create like my own custom clone trooper? Because I'm thinking like a mismatch of phase 1 and phase 2 clone armor with light blue and red stripes all over the armor, a custom blaster, like a tinted dark blue visor.
So you could, you could absolutely do something like that. Now, something like that wouldn't obviously go in the 501st because that's never been seen before on screen. So there's nothing to be screened. You're right. But if you wanted to build your own,
I can make another clone trooper.
You never know.
We have other clubs like the Mando Mercs. And in the Mando Mercs, you're doing something along the lines of that. You are creating your own character who's a Mandalorian who lives in that universe. And I think Joe's actually going through this process right now. Right, Joe?
Yep. So I have my own original character, custom Mando, but my wife, Kim, is in the process of submitting for approval. And so it's a lot of work. And then you take photos and you get feedback and you make adjustments. And then eventually you get the thumbs up. But yeah, pretty fun process.
Wow.
Yeah, so what if I took like the template of phase 2 armor from the 501st and then I painted it like on my own and then submitted it?
So that would be a little bit different in that, just like what Rami said, if you want to be in the 501st, then there's certain like parameters to be in those clubs. But if you want to make something that's outside of that, that's also encouraged, because that you could wear anytime, anywhere. You could wear it at a convention. And that doesn't have to be, that can be made out of any material. You have a lot more free, and that's the only thing, we kind of want to make sure that everyone that's listening is clear that we want to encourage costume building because it is fun. If you choose to go towards the path of movie screen or screen accurate, then you're going to want to go towards the clubs. But if you want to go in the club and just look and pull ideas and then build your own, that would be outside of the club, but it's still highly encouraged. At the end of the day, it's a large community of people that are passionate about these characters, whether it's from the screen or it's original. It's all good.
That's awesome.
You just got to figure out where to get the light blue paint.
Oh, well, we can talk about that.
If you only knew
We're gonna go to Home Depot, pick up every light blue palette, and then I'm just gonna go through them and find the one I like, and I'm gonna buy it.
Okay, Joe, what you're saying?
I was gonna say, if you only knew some people that could help you, now you know us, we can definitely keep the conversation going.
Yeah, if only we had an entire crew of people that we're on screen with right now.
I wonder who that could be.
We got to start looking.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I want to take the last few minutes and just talk about your podcast.
Steven.
Yes.
Oh, okay. What would you like to know?
Yes.
All right. What are some of your most memorable moments or conversations on the Dadbatch show? And are there any interviews or discussions that you particularly found that you loved?
Yeah, I think my favorite part of the show is text Q&A when we get our listener questions. We always get the questions like, oh, what's your favorite food or what's your favorite costume, stuff like that.
Generic.
But yeah, well, if that's what they're interested in, that's fine. But we've had some really like hard-hitting questions that have from time to time, they've, made me misty-eyed answering the questions, or just thinking about certain processes that we have to do with like with even building costumes, where there are things that you don't think about when you're in the process of doing something until somebody asks you, and then you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I guess all of that does make sense. This is why I did that, and this is why I built Wrecker, and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's my favorite part. It's getting the listener questions, the listener engagement.
Yeah, we do live streams on our channel like all the time, and the funny thing is, like, nobody asks us store brand questions.
No,
like
they're
everyone comes up with like these college dissertation questions about the moralities and depth of characters,
and we love
and
it.
What character struck a deep chord with you, or whatever.
Yeah. Star Wars fans are the most intelligent fans, and they have a lot to say. So we love the Q&A.
This community is the best.
Yeah, it's a wonderful community. Absolutely. Yes. Joe, Rami, is there anything else you want to add about your podcast? Any memorable moments?
So having done this, obviously the Bad Batch, right? And so we got the opportunity to do, as part of we're all members of the 501st, and they did a telethon during Christmas time last year, and they gave us the opportunity to interview D. Bradley Baker. And so we actually did it for that, but we very much ran it like our podcast, which was a little different from the footprint of the rest of the content for that telethon, but it worked well for us and we were comfortable with it. And we basically got to do a podcast with D. Bradley Baker as our guest as a result of that. And getting to talk to the guy that brings the voice to all the characters that we do was an amazing experience. So that was fun. That was a great moment.
He actually quizzed me on my Clone Wars stuff. He said he voiced 501 Clone Troopers, and I'm like, I caught that instantly. I'm like, you be like the 501st, and he's like, congratulations, you are a Star Wars mega fan.
There you go.
He knows his stuff.
And I think for me, the one that stands out the most was actually spread across several podcasts. So through some really neat relationships across this incredible community, we had the idea of doing a giveaway to raise money for charity. And this charity that we picked, and this is the first time doing this as a group of dads, was for NDSS, the National Down Syndrome Society, and we thought we were gonna, if we could raise $1,000, that'd be amazing. And so we had a chrome tonneau from Disneyland that John painted in chrome, and we started getting some pieces together, and before you know it, we raised a lot of money really quickly. How much was it, Ramey? What was the total?
It was over $15,000.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
Since you guys are fundraiser oriented, have you ever thought about joining a podathon this year?
Yeah, well, you have to explain what podathon is.
All right, so basically, podathon is a fundraiser where they gather like a bunch of different podcasters, and they do a marathon special of all the different shows throughout a day, and all the money they raise goes to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And occasionally they'll like interrupt the broadcast to give you the current total, a little bit of a halftime show, encourage you to keep donating, and they'll even have you on sometimes to like talk about your part of the panel.
Yeah.
You even get to have guests, so you can send in like requests for what guests you want to have, and they'll try to get them for you.
Yeah.
We are huge partners with Make-A-Wish Foundation because we're in the clubs. Absolutely. I mean, we'd be honored to be a part of something like that for sure.
Wow.
We should join the clubs too.
Yeah. I'm interested to learn more about the NDSS. Yeah. And then our last question is, what do you hope listeners gain from listening to your podcast? Are there any specific takeaways or messages you strive to deliver through your conversations?
I think one of the things that's coming to mind for me, and there's several messages that we could put here, right? But one of the common things that we hear is that we're all like, people will tell us that it sounds, when they're listening to us, they feel like they're in the room with us. And that's the vibe that we try and put out on kind of any topic that it is that we're talking about. So whether we're talking about building costumes or fatherhood or just Star Wars in general, or what we want to make sure that everybody knows that we're approachable and family oriented. And like, I mean, to one of the earlier questions, this concept of found family is something that's very big in the Bad Batch and is also kind of big in our lives in the way that we approach the community. So hearing that people feel like they're in the room with us when they listen to us, that tells me at least that we're hitting the right tone that I want to be projecting, because we want everybody to feel like they're just part of the Dadbatch family. So.
Absolutely. I think one of the messages that I want to put out is, we all you're born, you can't choose the family that you're born with, right? But cherish them if you can, but also cherish the family that you earn.
That's wonderful.
I think it's just the squad, the family connection. It's all about community. That's really, I think, don't do life alone. There's people out there that are Star Wars, and if our podcast can help bring people together, that's what we'll try to do to people.
This has been an incredible opportunity to speak with you. I'm just so honored to have you, and I'm so glad I was to get at least 3 of you together to talk about Star Wars and your podcast. I'm a big fan of the Dadbatch, and I love what it stands for. Happy Father's Day once again to you dads.
Thank you.
Happy Father's Day to everybody out there.
Same to you.
Yeah, and then where can people find you?
You can find me at stevie.kicks on Instagram, sometimes Twitter.
Okay.
Thedadbatch.com. Joe?
Austin, you want to say where people can find you, your website?
Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah, austinlaramusic.com. Yeah.
And tech.badbatch.
Excellent.
All right. Well,
You can keep it brief. Where can people find us?
Bring your sleeping blankets, y'all. It's a long exit.
It doesn't have to be.
So you can find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay.
And our socials are Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fatherhood Galaxy. Website, fatherhoodgalaxy.com. Merch store, fatherhoodgalaxy.myspreadshop.com. Patreon page, patreon.com/fatherhoodgalaxy. Join us on our race to 1,000 subscribers. As of right now, we have 945, so please subscribe to us. Also, YouTube just lowered their monetization requirements. So that means that we are that much closer. We just need you guys to click on our videos, watch the content, grab your helmets, get the Mantel mix, and enjoy.
All
That
right.
looked awesome. Oh, look at that. That is incredible. That is incredible. Oliver, oh, how nice.
All right, you know
guys-
what?
This is awesome. There we go. I know. Keith is going to cry in a few minutes, so here we go. So thank you so
there we
much, guys. This has
You're
been
missing
wonderful.
one.
This is
Oh,
wonderful.
there you go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. There you want to represent. Yeah.
Ooh,
Wow, look
I
at
just
that.
got an idea.
Yes.
I just
What's your
thought
idea?
of something.
Yes.
What if I made a helmet and I put an AI in it?
Ooh, okay. Wow.
Like if I
Okay.
coded like my own AI that'll answer to my commands.
You know what? You know what I like about this episode is that it's got you thinking, right? Yeah.
Like-
This is excellent. You know.
Hey, you know
we're
what?
being
You don't even have
creative.
to. You don't have to build a costume. You could build a droid.
Like I could
There you
build an
go.
assistant droid. I could build a costume and a droid, and I could have the droid answer to my commands and follow me around by using motion sensors.
There you go.
Good.
It's happening. All right.
Get my welding goggles, Dad.
Thank you to the Dad Batch, Austin and Joe, Stephen and Oliver, and Raimi and Bray. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thanks for having us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. So for everyone, we hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, take care, and we will see you again.